Nerd alert, nerd alert. It's almost time for season 2 of Our Nerdiest Thing, coming in March 2023. We will be reading Jennifer L. Armentrout's From Blood and Ash, and as always, we are spoiler friendly, so get to reading. I'm Whitney.
I'm Mindy.
And I'm Deb.
We're 3 best friends who love nerdy things.
Well, some people think we're nerdy, but we think we're pretty awesome.
This is Our Nerdiest Thing.
This season, we are discussing A Court of Thorns and Roses and all of Sarah J. Maas's books. We are spoiler friendly, so listen at your own risk. Hello, fellow nerds, and welcome to Our Nerdiest Thing. Today we are talking about A Court of Thorns and Roses, chapters 39 and 40. And to get us started, we're going to spin the wheel o' names.
And we have a winner. It's Deb again.
The Wheel of Misfortune.
For the Our Nerdiest recap. Deborah.
Again. Yay.
Again, you should just make another one that's like all Whitney. And just not tell me.
Our listeners don't know how competitive I am because I'm like, no, that's not right. It has to be random. It has to be, even if it's me or Mindy every single time.
I mean, it pretty much is.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
let me get the timer going. Sorry. All right. Ready, set, go.
Okay, so we're back under the mountain, and Feyre is in her dirty little cell, and the two Fae come in, and they start painting her private parts and putting gossamer robes on her. And the Rhysand comes, and he takes her to the Midsommar party and tells her that he'll be able to tell if anyone touches her. One of the High Lords from the Summer Court is brain melted by Rhysand, and then Feyre goes into the second trial, which has to do with reading, and Rhysand is able to speak to her telepathically and help her out, and then I'm out of time.
There was way too much that went on in this for you to get
I needed
that
a
in
45-second countdown.
I know. It's only a couple of chapters, and I feel like they weren't super long, but it was a lot.
It was a lot,
of stuff. Yeah. A lot of stuff is happening. So I thought that was a good job. It was better than I would have done. It was way more detailed.
But I told you before we got on I wanted to keep reading, and that's why I didn't, because I would have been like, and then, they killed Amarantha, and then they were in the Mist and Fury, and,
All right. So, Mindy, will you do our nerdiest vocabulary?
Yes, I will. So this week, because it prominently features Rhysand, but we've already done him. So because Lucian was trapped as part of the second trial, I thought I would look up Lucian. Lucian means light. It comes from the Latin lucere, which means to shine, so light or shine, which I thought was a weird, I don't know, I didn't feel like...
Is it because his eye's golden?
Maybe?
I don't know.
Yeah, I couldn't find like a very good tie-in with that. But I did find some interesting famous Lucians, which I thought was something I haven't done yet. First, there's Lucian Bonaparte, which, yes, that is Napoleon's brother.
Oh.
And he was the Prince of Canino and Musagano. And then there was a man named Lucian Lauren, and he was an American racehorse trainer who trained Secretariat.
Oh.
Which, fun fact, and because we're from Kentucky.
Which is a big deal because we
live in Kentucky. But even more fun fact, if you watch the movie Secretariat, my dad is not featured. He's in a band in like a background scene, but he's in that movie and he still gets royalties from it.
That's awesome.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So I thought that's a little fun fact there.
So we're going out after this?
Yeah, I get a whole like $56 every year. And then finally, this one's the most interesting. Lucian Greaves is a social activist and spokesman and co-founder of the Satanic Temple.
Oh.
That's interesting.
Right? And so Wikipedia says that they don't actually worship Satan, which seems odd because why would you call yourself the Satanic Temple if you're not going to worship Satan? But they focus on contemporary satanic beliefs like personal sovereignty, independence, and freedom of will.
So they're atheists?
I guess. I don't know. It just seemed...
I think so.
I thought that was weird. I was like, don't call yourself the Satanic Temple if you don't want people to think you worship Satan.
Well, because a temple is where you go to worship.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
Sounds like maybe they worship self. If that's what they focus on.
Well, maybe they think they're Satan.
Maybe. We don't worship Satan because we are Satan.
Well, so that begs the question.
That's pretty punk rock.
In my mind, did Sarah J. think about the Satanist church band while she was naming this character, or
Somehow,
something different?
I doubt it. Yeah, I don't know. But then, of course, I went to the Urban Dictionary and found some very interesting sections of that. So
I thought you were going to say
I found some sex
very
there.
interesting
Yeah.
sex.
Well, because I'm
just-
looking at my notes, and the first one is a sexy, muscular man, also known as Mr. Swag. That was
Oh,
funny because we always talked about how he was Tamlin's swag.
he was helping.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is for just the first name Lucian.
Yes, this
on
is just
Urban
for the-
Dictionary.
yes.
Okay.
And the second one is hot as fuck.
Oh,
So somebody really likes to get some Lucian.
I mean, I've got some Lucian art in my library from Ghost Nymphs that's really hot. I'm just going to say.
it does take a little turn here. No one likes him. This is the third one. No one likes him. He annoys everyone, and you should kill him. I'll help you.
oh my!
I know.
Is Urban Dictionary where you can just
Yeah,
upload
it's just
whatever
like
you want?
anybody,
Okay,
yeah.
okay.
Number 4. Lucian is the name of anyone who is a perfect combination of smart, intelligent, kind, loving, hardworking, and just plain cool. And I don't know if I'd go that far, but
That's my Lucian. I really would say that. I like Lucian.
this one, I think, for me, sort of is where I'm at with Lucian. Lucian seems pretty kind, but he actually is a pretty toxic person when you get to know him.
I mean, he complains a lot.
He's got some flaws.
Yeah, he.
Maybe Elaine just doesn't want to hear him bitch all the time.
She hears everything else. So.
Right, yeah. Maybe she can see her future and he's like, me. And she's like, I don't want to be a part
And
of
he
that.
looks
You're
like an
annoying.
earthworm while he does it.
Right.
Maybe.
And then finally, the very last one is a name for any dark, ominous figure found in the back rooms. And I have no idea what the back rooms are, but now I want to know.
I'm not searching that on my phone. No way.
That's gonna mess up the algorithm on your
Right.
on all your ads. And
Yeah,
stuff.
no, I did not look at back rooms because I thought like it was some kind of weird sex
It's
den.
what it sounds like.
Yeah, it's got that vibe to it.
Yeah, there's definitely a sex swing there.
So yeah, that's Lucian. I don't know that I feel like I know him any better after doing that.
Yeah.
The only thing that I was thinking, the very first thing you said about the light, or was it shining a light or just a
It's
light?
light and to shine.
Okay. Well, I feel like he is that for Tamlin. He tries some of the time. He tries to give Tamlin advice and tell Tamlin what he thinks he should do and guide him. Because we talked a lot about like Tamlin's instincts are not great, right? If he just
No.
goes to his own devices, he makes really bad decisions. And Lucian is trying to help him some of the time, and
So
most
he's
of the
like
time
a light
Tamlin-
to guide him.
That's what I'm thinking.
Okay.
Like he's trying to be that at least some of the time, but Tamlin just like doesn't listen to him.
I
you
can
know?
get behind that. It's a stretch, but I can get behind
Yeah,
that. Yeah.
I mean, it is a little bit of a stretch, but it makes more sense than the satanic,
Yes, it
the
does.
satanic founder dude.
Yes, it does.
That's so funny. Well, let's get into the chapters. So to kind of give us context where we are, Feyre has finished task 1 of Amarantha's, which was with the worm last time, and she's been doing a couple of minor impossible tasks. Basically, she had to clean the floor that they gave her dirty water, basically like enchanted dirty water to stay dirty and get dirtier. Lucian's mom, the lady of the Autumn Court, came and helped her complete that. They had her do the lentils in Rhysand's room, and Rhysand helped her. And Rhysand used his Daemati powers to basically tell the guards, like, leave her alone and don't mess with her. So when we start this section in chapter 39, she specifically points out that she's gotten regular hot meals of like actual food, for that fresh food, and not just like gross moldy bread, ever since Rhys kind of like intervened for her. I wrote, she is still so confused by the riddle. Bless her.
I know. And like in this chapter, she finally just gives up on it.
I know.
Completely.
I felt really bad for her. The first major thing that I marked as just standing out to me was when she said that she was utterly alone, locked in silence. And so first of all, I was like, okay, well, she's not alone. She just doesn't realize it, right? Like Rhysand is
Right.
100% like helping her every single step of the way and trying to figure out how he can help her more. And she just doesn't know that. But I also thought that was just really interesting, because for me, that really foreshadows what happens in book 2, right? When Tamlin locks her up and she kind of consumes herself in that like dark power that she didn't realize that she really had. And that really was locked in silence. That really was feeling utterly alone. And I guess I just didn't really, I don't know that I've ever realized that's really how she felt under the mountain, and that Tamlin made her feel that exact way again. Like, I think I had always thought of it, he triggered her like PTSD, but not in a way of like he made her feel the exact same way in a different situation. Does that make sense? I don't know if I'm making
I get what you're
sense with
saying.
what I'm
So
saying.
it's like she already felt that way and she was trying to step it down, but then he did that and that made it all come back up to the surface, and she felt like she was back under the mountain, trapped. And
well,
like,
and not even so much that, like, he literally did trap her just like she was under the mountain, right? Like, it wasn't just he made her feel like she was back under the mountain. Like, he created a new under the mountain.
She couldn't even go outside.
Yeah.
I don't know why I haven't really put that together until this reading, but I just didn't. And it really made me upset. I wrote, this makes me so disgusted with Tamlin and Lucien. That's what I wrote down.
But let me say this though, even in these chapters, and I don't know if this necessarily goes with feeling alone, but I think she feels like a captive, not just from Amarantha, but she goes and points out, she makes it a point to say that she compares the eye tattoo on her arm or on her hand that Rhys put there with the bargain to Jurian's eye. Like, she belonged to Rhys just as Jurian belonged to Amarantha.
Yeah.
And she says it quite a bit in here, saying like she felt like she was belonged to somebody. She was somebody's personal belonging. That kind of speech with it. And so I think Tamlin brought that back up too, as feeling like a captive or something that's just belongs to somebody else. She's not her own person.
Right. And in this book, I agree with that. And in this book, in the second half, she has said multiple times to different people, Tamlin never treated me like a captive, right? Like, I've never felt like a prisoner.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, first of all, yes, you did. And second of all, yes, you are.
Kidnapped you.
Yeah.
And wouldn't let you leave.
And he's going to do it again. Right?
Yeah.
But right now, she's like rewriting that history and like, well, no, I didn't ever feel like that. Like, well, you did. And it's okay that you
did until you guys had sex.
Right. Well, until you decided you wanted to have sex with
Okay.
him.
Yeah. That's good.
Yeah. Well, and let's get into the resand of it all, because you just said Feyre feels like he is making her his property, which he basically is. And you said it in the recap, Deb, like, she's got these two twins, these weird shadow people that just like show up in her cell and take her, right? And basically strip her naked, paint her body, and
on
then
her intimate parts.
Yeah, I did not remember.
I didn't remember that either. Like, basically they sexually assault her.
I mean, she's basically walking around naked. She's got body paint and she's got like see-through like fabric covering
sheer
the nips, and that's basically it.
Well, and we said this before we actually turned on the microphone. This isn't really a chapter where you like resand very much at all, but I did make a note that whenever she walks into the room the first time, she's more worried about what Tamlin thinks about her being practically nude than what everyone else thinks.
Yeah. I remember. Yeah, I wrote that down.
Yeah, and I'm like, maybe you should worry more about the fact that you just got your body painted and are being coerced and doing things you don't want to do.
He basically dressed her up like a prostitute.
Yeah,
yes,
100%.
Very much so. Yes.
Well, and he even says, she said, she points like at her paint and says, "Is this necessary?" And he said, "Of course. How else would I know if anyone touches you?"
Again, because she belongs to him.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, in this moment, I mean, she does, unfortunately.
Yeah. The only redeeming thing about that whole exchange, because later, and I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but later she wakes up in her cell and realizes, like, I don't remember anything from last night. And Lucien comes in, right? And she's like, oh crap, what happened? The one redeeming thing that I did note was, I think that part of the body paint was resand, not necessarily protecting her.
I thought that too.
But it gives her that peace of mind of like, okay, the paint is only messed up right here on my waist. And she says, like, at least I know, like, it that didn't happen
I think it also keeps other people from messing with her. Like, he would know if anyone messed with her.
Yeah.
Which is, I think, something he is doing for her, but it feels really icky.
Yeah. Well, and I was thinking about, I mean, it definitely is icky. And I was thinking about it like, Resand is being assaulted on a daily daily
Right.
basis, and he knows exactly what that feels like. And by giving her, he's forcing her to drink the fairy wine so that she's not going to remember what happens, but he's also giving her like a peace of mind of, you don't remember, but this didn't happen. So Rhysand has her painted, has her in this outfit. He puts her in a little crown, right, like a tiara, and I wondered which crown that was. I love,
She is a high lady.
right? And like where he brought that with him, I guess. Like, where did he even get that?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
He's been under the mountain this whole time, right?
Right.
Like, he hasn't gone back to Valaris.
And where do the twin spirit things get the gossamer from?
From
I
the
don't know.
curtains on the windows.
Oh, like
like
Enchanted.
the sound of music?
One of my favorite things is Enchanted whenever she makes her dresses out of the curtains and he's so pissed off about it. And she's
Well,
like,
and
isn't
you
my
can
dress
see
beautiful?
it. I love how you can see it cut out. Yeah. Like,
Yeah.
it's not the whole curtain taken down.
That
it's
movie
just
is
cut
some
out.
pure
I
like
love
meta
that movie.
magic. I love that movie.
I love that movie too. But yeah, I just thought it was funny. Rhysand puts her in a crown, like from the very beginning. I did note too, she doesn't have the instinct to be quiet around Rhysand.
I wrote that down too.
And I wrote LOL because she is his equal, both as mate and in his actual, like his perspective.
Well, she's
He
actually
sees her.
being herself.
Right. Like he sees her as his equal. He's vulnerable with her. We talked about that last week. And she is herself with him. She doesn't feel
Right.
like she has to make herself less because he's a high
What
lord.
I think is
right?
funny though is she says the instincts that told her to be quiet around Tam and Lucian, but she wasn't really quiet around Tam and Lucian,
No.
but she didn't.
No.
But the difference here is that she doesn't feel like she has to in front of Rhys.
Right.
Yeah.
It doesn't really feel like she should the way that she does with Tamlin and Lucian. That's true.
So speaking of Tamlin, did you notice whenever because I thought at first maybe Rhysand was painting her to hide the bargain, right? And then you realize he's painting her to essentially get her ready to be presented with the
Right.
bargain, right?
Yeah.
And one of the things I noticed was she's looking at Tamlin's face, and again, no claws. He was able to keep the sign of his temper at bay, is what she said. So again, no emotion. And we find out in the next chapter that Lucian tells her he's not spelled to not have emotion,
Yep.
which pissed me off even more. I'm like, because I think for the last few weeks we've been giving him the benefit of the doubt because I'd completely forgotten about that.
Yeah, me too.
And Lucian flat out tells her, no,
He's just doing it.
he's just being a piece of shit.
But no, he does tell her though, and see, and here's where I get in that gray area where I don't really want to defend Tamlin because I agree. I think it's shitty what he's doing, but I also think that he thinks he's doing whatever he can because Lucian points it out that he doesn't like Tamlin's staying quiet because he doesn't want Amarantha to know what specific things
Right.
tick him
Right.
off.
Which,
about.
yes, I agree with, but we know earlier in the book he can't control how emotional
Yeah,
he
no,
is.
I
So
totally, but I'm just
maybe
saying,
it's a writing flaw. Maybe that's what
Well,
it is. Like
but
he can
even-
suddenly control his emotions.
But even then, like the not letting Amarantha know what is like the worst is all about him.
True.
And it's not about Feyre, right?
true.
Like it's about
Agreed.
what upsets him, not what's worse for Feyre. You
Right.
know?
Right. So maybe he should say, oh, no, it really upsets me when you give her a nice place to sleep. Don't do that.
When she's comfortable and
When
dressed.
she can
and-
put on weight and, live lavishly. Please, whatever you do, don't do that.
One thing, just thinking about Rhysand, I think it's hilarious the way that he presents Feyre to Tamlin because, first of all, he says, I don't like my belongings tampered with, which made me laugh. I wrote, haha, in my notes because, I mean, he's showing Tamlin, he's pissed at Tamlin because Tamlin has Feyre, right? And has her love. And he doesn't, at this point, Rhysand does not think that he will ever be able to have Feyre's affection or even like friendship. Like that's just not a possibility in his mind. And so he's using this opportunity to kind of like stick it to Tamlin. Like
But don't you
she's
think
actually
he's being
mine.
a
at
little
least-
bit of a jealous bitch.
Yes,
100% he is.
Yes, he is. But he's saying to Tamlin, like, you're weaker because look what I did. I helped her and I got a
Sure.
bargain out of it.
He's also taunting Amarantha too,
Oh,
because he
100%.
says 1 week with me at the night court every month in exchange for my healing services after her first task. And then it says he raised my left arm to reveal the tattoo whose ink didn't shine as much as the paint on my body. For the rest of her life, he adds casually, but his eyes were now upon Amarantha. And so like I feel like he's telling Amarantha she is going to defeat you,
Yeah.
and then I get to hang out with her the rest of my life.
Yep.
Yeah.
You know, and I mean,
I
we
like
know
that
that
too.
he hates her too, right? And so it's a little jab at her.
Yeah.
Like I want to be around this woman for the rest of my life, and I don't want to be around you, really. Yeah.
Yeah. And I noted too, just thinking about, we've talked before, the kind of like unhinged theory that maybe Amarantha and Tamlin were mates. Tamlin.
Why do you think it's unhinged?
Well, just because I only say unhinged because it's like an out there fan theory and not really like a.
Right. There's nothing that's ever given us reason to think
Right,
that, but it's a
right.
theory that all of us feel like would make sense.
No, I agree.
Do you ever wonder if Sarah J. Maas looks at the theories and she's like, man, that's pretty good?
I think so.
Yeah.
Well, I would if I were her. I just thought it was interesting because we were talking about Tamlin being able to keep his temper in check, and he's very stoic, except for he's gripping the throne or the chair of the throne with his white knuckles, just like Amarantha did at the end of the first trial.
Oh, yeah.
I just thought that was a really interesting detail. Like both of them were able to keep their tempers in check, except for the white knuckles.
Did you notice too that the way that Amarantha is described as being dressed surprisingly modest next to Feyre's
Yeah, I did
like
notice
prostitute?
that. But that's the thing too. Knowing it's coming from Feyre's point of view, was it actually that modest?
I mean,
or were just
compared to what
were
she
her
was
jiggly
wearing.
bits covered up, and so she's like, "Well, that's pretty modest
Yeah,
compared
true.
to what I'm wearing."
I
just thought that was
wonder-
interesting.
No one painted Amarantha's vulva that day.
Maybe she does paint her vulva.
Maybe that's where they got the idea. It's all in vogue under the mountain. Is if you're only cool if you paint your vulva.
That makes me think of Outlander in season 2, where Claire gets the bikini
She gets waxed?
Yeah,
Yeah.
And Jamie's like, "Your honey pot." I feel like that's what
Well,
Tamlin
he's like,
would be
why
thinking.
you would rid yourself of such an amazing forest is beyond me. I'm like, she rid herself of it because you guys all had pubic lice, dude. It talks about it in the books. Gross, by the way, Diana DeBalden.
Yeah.
He did not like that.
And it does make me laugh though. And then Rhysand compels Feyre to drink the fairy
I was going to
wine
ask you if that was compulsion.
against her will.
Okay,
I
no.
think he definitely was using his power to get in her brain and like make her do it.
Because that last line is, she said, I
She said
grabbed
my-
the traitorous god.
Yeah, my
goblet."
traitorous
Yeah.
fingers
Yes.
latched
Yeah.
onto the goblet.
So,
She said
she didn't
no.
want to do it.
Yeah,
and she did it.
It was
anyway.
definitely non-consensual. She
Yeah.
said no, and he was like, "Yeah, you're going to do this." And we know that he's coming from a place of, this is horrible, and it's going to be horrible, and it's already horrible, and I don't want you to have any more bad memories, right?
Right.
So, like, he's trying to protect her, but at the same time, he is coercing her to do something that she doesn't want to do. He's got
And
her
then
on display naked.
Continues to coerce her because he
Oh,
knows
yeah.
the fairy wine will make her extremely uninhibited, right? And we've already
Right.
seen how much she likes to dance when a fiddle's playing. Can you imagine what
Oh
it's
my
like?
gosh.
You know, but I mean, yeah, I'll be honest. Rhysand is very difficult to like right now, and obviously, I think this was done on purpose because as a reader, you're supposed to still be rooting for Tamlin. Right. But I'm reading this and I'm like, damn, Rhysand, what are you doing, buddy? Like, you could have not been this bad.
Like, even knowing what we know, that he's not doing it like because
and he's not
trying to be
assaulting her or anything
mean.
like that, right?
No, his shadow people are.
right.
They're at least women though. Like
That
he
is
did.
true.
He could have sent Court of Nightmares dudes to
Oh, that's
get.
true.
You know what I
Ugh.
mean? Like it could have been a lot worse. But yeah. And I just keep coming back to he is not thinking of Feyre as his mate. He is not thinking of her as a potential like romantic partner. He is only thinking about her as a tool to defeat Amarantha, which is exactly what Tamlin has been doing the entire book, right?
Yeah.
And this is Rhysand being like Tamlin, which is why it's so hard to stomach, I think.
Yeah, that's a good point.
He's using
True.
her as a tool, and that's rough. Even though he's got, these safeguards and these boundaries and whatever to protect her and keep her safe. Like, yeah, he is trying to keep her safe, but he's still just like using her as a tool.
Yeah, 100% he
That's
is.
hard.
Yeah, you're right. That's hard to read knowing what we know about Rhysand.
Yeah. But Mindy, I know you had some stuff you wanted to say about the fairy wine.
Actually, yes, and it ties right into what you were saying about he wanted to make sure that she didn't have these bad memories. But what's interesting is when you look into it from a brain chemistry point of view, it actually does the opposite. So when I looked into this, I thought about this whole like drinking to forget, because in the end of this, she finally starts welcoming it. She's like, I don't want to remember anything. So she's wanting to not remember what's going on. She wants to forget her problems for a bit. And that's really kind of a true sign right there that she is still struggling with her mental health. And while it seems appealing to drink to forget, it actually makes your mental health worse because you're replacing a healthy coping mechanism with an unhealthy one that will create a pattern of drinking and alcoholism down the road. So this article from the Blackberry Center, which is, I think, actually like a mental health center, says that once you try to stop drinking to forget, you realize that your problems are still there and they have compounded, which makes you want to drink again. So it's a vicious cycle.
Which is what we see her do.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, I realized that Feyre had little control over what she did, and it's not like she had a therapist working with her, but, it probably made her situation worse with that decision of doing that over and over again.
Also, this is what Nesta does.
True. Yeah, she does. She
Like
drowns
this
herself in
exact-
alcohol.
The cycle, yeah.
So then reading on, it actually affects your brain chemistry. And when you try to stop, you end up with more feelings of sadness, hopelessness, and a lack of motivation that tend to surface when your brain chemistry tries to change back once you come down off the alcohol. So we kind of see this, like when she does come into this sort of, by the end of the chapter, she's trying to like the end of these 3 chapters, she's trying to talk herself back into being present and wanting to do this stuff because she kind of had given up. So there was a Johns Hopkins University. They showed that when you alter the brain's chemistry with alcohol, it makes overriding your memories difficult. So in the study, mice were given a shock when certain tones were played to them, and half of them had been given water with ethanol, which is a component of alcohol, while the rest drank just plain water. And the following day, when the mice heard the tones again, the ones who had consumed the alcohol were more likely to freeze in anticipation of another shock.
Interesting.
Yeah. So the brain tissue analysis of the mice also suggested that the ones given alcohol had more receptors along their synapses. And I know I'm getting like super scientific here, and I'm not trying to like
What?
And I'm really not a science person, but when it comes to like the brain, I'm so fascinated.
It is really interesting.
So the synapses are the gaps in a nerve cell that transmits your impulse to the next neuron. So from cell to cell. And then the receptor that gets placed there will speed up that transmission. So you'll do it more and more. So the more the receptors equals the stronger synapses, and the stronger the synapses equals stronger memories. So when you drink, basically, it's creating these strong receptors on your synapses, which makes the memory actually, instead of forgetting it, it becomes a stronger memory and you hang on to it longer.
Which is why it becomes a cycle, because then you're like, crap, I need to drink
didn't work.
again.
Yeah, I need to get rid of that memory. Yeah.
So drinking to forget actually not only temporarily blocks new memories from being formed, but it also will hardwire your painful memories into your brain. So
that's terrifying.
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess Reese was trying to be nice, but he really screwed up.
Yeah, he did. He screwed up a lot in this chapter.
Well, I mean, it makes her so vulnerable, she's essentially naked in this very dangerous situation where she is extremely powerless, literally and figuratively, right? She's surrounded by all these high fae that have and lesser fae that have all these powers, and she is just a human. And he's taking away the only thing that she has, which is her mind, her brain, right? That she can outsmart everybody else, which she has done multiple times. And he's taking that away from her. Yeah. And she doesn't know that she can actually trust him to protect her, right?
Well,
and like not let anything bad happen.
It's another form of captivity to not have control over what your body or what you're doing.
Right. Or what other people are doing to you. Which is why I keep going back to the I guess she at least has the paint, right? Like she can see where somebody touched her and where they didn't touch her, right?
But one thing that just occurred to me as you were saying that, we know later in the book, she and Tamlin do get alone, and Tamlin does smear her paint, and all Rhysand does is snap his fingers and puts it back.
I know.
And so there is a part of me that's like, is he also hiding if anyone tried to do anything to her?
Right. Which we know that he probably isn't hiding that, right? He's we know that he is not like assaulting her.
No,
He's
not him. Like if
he's
she's
not
by herself
letting-
and someone comes
Right.
up and
well,
like,
he's not going to let as much as it's in his power. He's not going to let anybody do that to her, but she doesn't know that, right? Like,
Yeah.
and a first time reader doesn't know that.
right.
So it was a rough chapter for Rhysand.
Yeah. And she wakes up so hungover every day.
Yeah.
Poor thing.
No,
She's
I
like
felt-
vomiting in the corner.
I felt
Oh,
bad
and
for
the
her.
part that really bothered me was like while she's doing it, it says she vomited like there, and then he gives her more. Like,
Right.
or he makes her dance more.
Oh,
like,
yeah,
so
she
she
Yeah.
dances so
until she
hard.
throws up.
Yeah, and then he's like, okay, do it.
And
do
then
it
he
some
has
more.
her dance more.
Yeah,
Right.
Ugh,
Yeah.
it's
She couldn't
rough.
just sit on your lap after she
I'm like,
threw up
can't
there,
I just
buddy.
barf? Can you just hold my hair, please?
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Well, and he is playing into the, everyone is terrified of him because they think that he is like an evil, sadistic monster, right? And so him messing with her plays into that.
Yeah.
And that's what he wants everybody to see him as.
And I'm not making fun of this at all, but I will say I'm very comfortable with my body, and I would be more mortified that I threw up in front of everyone than
Oh my gosh,
being
me too.
practically naked.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't
I
want to
think I
watch.
would
I don't
too.
want people watching me blow chunks.
Yeah.
Like I just
I
I would
don't want
rather
anybody
be naked.
watching me do anything, but if I had to pick one, I would honestly probably pick
You'd
naked.
rather be
I think I
naked,
would rather
right?
be naked in
Yeah.
front of other people than throw up
Yeah,
in front of
not
other people.
naked and throwing up. That's
Right.
horrible.
That's a
Yeah,
double
oh my
whammy.
gosh.
Yeah.
That's a nightmare. That's a
Right.
new nightmare that I'm going to have.
Sorry. You're naked at the front
my
of
new
class in high
anxiety.
school, and then you throw up in front of like all your friends that you had in high school. Can I talk about like just Lucian? So Lucian comes like that very
Lucian.
first day, and he is so just not very sympathetic to everything that's going on, and asks her like, what were you thinking? And how could you not think I would come for you? And she's like, well, you told me you hesitated that one time with the Naga. Why would I think you were coming? And he said, you offered up your name for me after all that I said to you, all I did, you still offered up your name. Didn't you realize I would help you after that, oath or no oath? And I wrote, why the fuck would she?
Why would she? Yeah.
Right.
And
Right.
and we find out too that Amarantha was not letting his wounds heal, and that's
Yeah.
why he
Right.
couldn't come, which makes me love Lucian a little bit more. I gotta say, he
know.
came as fast as he could.
Yes.
But at the same time, why in her mind would she think someone's going to come for me?
Yeah.
Well, and also it said, or I wrote it down. This is how I understood it. It had been 5 days since she made the deal with Rhysand.
Right, and she had already been sick for 2 or 3 before that.
Exactly.
So we're going on like 10 days
Right.
probably.
And he's like, I was going to get here as fast as I could. And it's like, well, that's great. But I was literally going to die. So.
And I didn't know you were coming.
Exactly. Like, it is exactly what Rhysand said, right? Like, he could be here in 5 minutes. He could never come at all. Like,
Right.
you don't know. And
Well, and-
that bothered me of Lucian. Like, she was dying.
Yeah.
Right.
She
like,
needed
how
the
dare you
help.
make a bargain with Rhysand when no one was coming for you and you were dying from an infection? I mean, like, what the fuck was she supposed to do? Just
Right.
die?
But I think too, and maybe Feyre says this, maybe in this part or some other part. I really don't think Lucian like understands the human body. And
Yeah, she does mention that. Like, he doesn't understand that they do die, quickly. Like,
right,
they
like
can't-
how fast your body
Yeah.
will wither and decay or whatever. Yeah, I don't think he understands it at all. So
It's
they,
no excuse, Lucian.
I know, right?
You can read. Go look it up.
they basically keep doing this little routine, right, of getting all painted up, getting basically naked, and going with Rhysand to the throne room
Sounds
for
fun.
these parties, right?
Now it does. Now that I know everything, it sounds fun.
Right. With Valaris Rhysand, it would be
Yes, it
would
was.
be a hoot and a half.
or even Valaris Rhysand at the Court of Nightmares, which we know gets very, very nice.
It does.
Whitney just turned bright red and was like, yeah, it does.
I loved too that Rhysand basically says Tamlin isn't really like a true High Lord, and that's why his court fell. He made some kind of like snarky comment to Feyre.
yeah.
So he does, and then here is something that I noticed because it was really the first time it happened. She said, well, your court fell too. And it says sadness flickered in his violet eyes. I wouldn't have noticed it had I not felt it
Yeah,
deep inside
saw
me. And
that
I was like,
too.
oh, that's the mating bond.
Yeah.
That's not the bargain. That's the mating bond
Yeah.
that she can feel what's happening inside him.
Yeah, which she does not know for quite some time.
Right.
Well, she thinks it's that eye looking at her.
Right. And I mean, I wonder if he knows that she can feel it at that point. I don't feel like
I don't think he
He's
probably
being way
does.
too casual with her to think that she can feel
Yeah.
anything.
Well, he says later in A Court of Mist and Fury that it didn't. He had his suspicions, but the mating bond didn't really snap for him until after she is turned high fae.
Right.
At the very end of this book.
Right.
So at this point in what we're reading, he just suspects. Which again, he is not looking at her like that right now. Right. He's looking at her as the tool because the mating bond hasn't snapped into place yet.
Right. Right.
So they go to another nighttime party, and then something very different is going on with a summer court fairy. And Deb, I know you wanted to talk about this.
So there's just one little reference to it. He says "Happy Midsummer" to her, and I didn't realize even when I was reading this again today that. So in this scene, Rhysand actually executes a lord of the summer court for trying to escape. The high lord of the summer court is also there, which we get the first description of him, which he is so fucking pretty. He's got like white hair, blue eyes, dark skin.
Yeah.
Like he's just beautiful. And Feyre essentially figures out that he goes into this lord's mind and says, no one was helping him escape. He did it all on his own. And Feyre knows that Rhysand protected him, right? And you can see the relief in the summer court high lord's face. So it's really, really interesting because everyone's terrified of Rhysand in that moment. It's what he's known for, right? It's kind of like this like Daemati power. It says the fairy male's eyes went wide, then glazed as he slumped to the side in a puddle of his own waste. Blood leaked from his nose, from his ears, pooling on the floor. And then that's when Amarantha says, I said shatter his mind, not his brain. And so Feyre figures out that he did that on purpose. So let's talk a little bit about Midsummer Festival, because that is the party that they're attending that night, which essentially is summer solstice is what it is. So Midsummer Festival began as a pagan holiday to celebrate fertility, but whenever Catholicism like swooped into the area, it merged and became some of the holidays to celebrate John the Baptist. And I don't know very much about John the Baptist. Why are they celebrating him?
He was Jesus's cousin, and he was born first, and he was like the messenger to prepare the way to prepare the people for Jesus, the Messiah's coming, basically.
Okay.
He preached out in the desert and ate locusts and baptized a bunch of people.
Okay.
And then he got beheaded.
Oh, he did. By a woman, right?
Because of a woman.
Oh,
because the king's... Somebody's daughter danced. Sorry, I'm like taking over your...
No, that's why I asked you.
The king's daughter or like stepdaughter or something danced for him, and she danced so well that he was like, I'll give you anything you want. And that's why Southern Baptists don't dance, first of all.
What?
Because
it's very Adam and Eve. How dare a woman fuck everything up?
So the mom said, ask for John the Baptist's head on a platter. And so the girl did, and he had John the Baptist executed.
Oh, that sucks. Sorry, Johnny.
Wah, wah.
So according to culturetrip.com, the festival, which is held on summer solstice, is the day when the sun never fully sets in Sweden. So midsummer is really a Swedish holiday and a Germanic holiday. So on this holiday, they decorate their farms and their tools and their homes with foliage. And people dress up as the Green Man, which we've talked some about on this podcast, but the Green Man shows up a lot in Fae mythology. The Green Man is a legendary being that brings rebirth and represents a cycle of new growth each spring. So if you read Rhapsodic, the trilogy, and if you haven't, you really should. The Green Man is a big part of those books, and it is in a court where it's essentially a spring court, right, that he lives in. So at this time, a maypole is also erected, and some people say that it looks pretty phallic. And again, this is a pagan fertility right. So I wanted to show you two, and we'll post this in our notes.
It should
but
look
that's
like a
that's a
penis.
picture of the maypole.
My.
So if you guys are wondering, it's a long pole. It's got a shaft. It's got a shaft at the top
Yeah.
with 2 balls.
Yeah.
So I think it does look
I'm a
pretty
little-
phallic.
Don't they wrap the maypole though? Like, why? If you want to do fertility, don't wrap the dick.
That's a really good point. But they're wrapping it in fresh growth, right? And wildflowers.
That
so.
sounds like a medical
STD.
problem.
It sounds like a yeast infection.
Oh no, my maypole has some freshly fertilized flowers coming out of it.
Somebody wrapped some foliage over.
They'll never know. Just wrap it and spray some perfume on it. They'll never know. Okay, so this
That's
is
where Summer's Eve came from. Sorry, I just thought of
why. If you don't know what Summer's Eve is, we're not going to talk about it. Go look it up. It means you're younger than us.
friend of the podcast, Summer's Eve.
And our first sponsor, Summer's Eve, washing away all your maypole desires and the good bacteria in your vagina. Okay, so in Midsummer Festival, it starts at noon with a picnic, and everyone dances around the maypole. And I guess there's this really fun like frog dance that's tradition that like it doesn't matter what age you are, you do it, and they get like super silly, and it's really, really fun. So you start out with a picnic and the dance around the maypole, and then in late afternoon, a huge lunch is served, and it's said to be like the best meal of the year, like the American equivalent of like Easter dinner, right? So they serve potatoes with chives and sour cream, salmon, and pickled herring. So I could do without the herring.
Yeah,
I don't know if you
without
guys
that.
have ever had pickled herring. I'm not a fan.
I'm
to
good.
be
I like
honest.
anything pickled
Yeah.
except for pickles.
Yeah, I like pickled eggs. They're really
Which
good.
is ironic. It's a hot take.
So in the evening, outdoor games are held, and they drink a lot of beer and essentially do shots of vodka. So a couple of things that are in the lore of Midsummer is if someone collects 7 different flowers on Midsummer Eve, and I can't say Summer Eve. Damn it. Okay.
You're welcome.
So if someone collects 7 different flowers on the night before Midsummer and puts them under their pillow, they'll dream of their true love. You can also see the face of your future spouse by looking into a well at midnight. So a couple of magical things about Midsummer, which I thought were really fun, is plants are extremely magical. Supernatural beings are supposed to be their most active on Midsummer, and it's the perfect time to collect healing plants or try to predict the future. So apparently, rolling around in the dew on the morning of Midsummer is good for your health.
Oh.
So do you like?
I don't think my neighbors would appreciate that.
Well,
Does it specify if you must be clothed or not?
It says
to
in the
roll?
nude.
Oh, it did say nude.
yeah. So
gotcha.
rolling around in the nude in the dew on the morning of Midsummer is good for your health. And then loud behavior on top of that is encouraged to drive away evil spirits. So you're like, I'm running around in the nude.
I got the loud behavior.
You know, that makes me think this is going to be like an outrageous thing to say, and I have absolutely nothing to back it up with or anywhere to point you to where I heard this. But I remember seeing something crazy on like Dr. Phil or something like
You
that.
saw something crazy on Dr. Phil. No way.
I know, right? Can you believe? But it was like this lady who was saying that the best thing for your health was to be naked and like get. Sorry, I'm making myself laugh about it. Get naked and get some sunshine straight up your butthole.
I've heard of this. I've heard of
right?
this.
Like,
Yeah.
that's what that makes me think of. Like, you know what's
So-
really good for you? Like something super weird.
Can I say something super awkward? I don't care how thin you are. Even if you're laying on your stomach, the sun's not shining on your butthole. So how are you having to like pull your cheeks apart?
I think she literally was like going out into her yard and like spreading it.
oh,
Yes.
no.
Still doesn't get up in there. What the hell?
I mean,
She's just gonna
That's what
burn
the-
your butt.
That's what the Summer's Eve is for.
that's what Summer's Eve is for. Exactly. Multi-purpose.
Put a little sunshine in your hoo-ha. Yeah.
I mean, I
so-
think if I had a really tall fence, I could. And if I believed that rolling around in the dew was
how
really
many
gonna be
times?
helpful.
How many times did you burn your asshole last summer? Be honest.
That's why we had to move.
The neighbors were like, dude, we're tired of seeing your brown hole. Get out. Yeah. But I mean, so once I realized it was Midsummer and they executed a lord from the summer court and then the High Lord had to watch. It's like she picked that day on purpose.
Yeah, I didn't make that connection. That's really cool.
Yeah, it is literally their day, right?
Yeah.
And she murders someone from his court.
I didn't think about that either.
Yeah, so it's really
just more
sad.
psycho.
And you do again. You dislike Reese more because he literally just kills this guy in front of everyone. But we know
It's a
that
mercy
Rhysand, right? He was being merciful and he was protecting the other Fae around him,
Yeah.
right? Because it says you can visibly see the High Lord, like see the
Well,
relief in him.
And I marked to the fact that Feyre clearly sees that, right? Like she sees there's more to it, that there's something deeper. She sees the relief in the Summer Lords and stuff. And I'm just like, nobody else
else saw
sees that? Yeah, because they're still like calling him names. And
like sometimes I feel like Amarantha is not really with it. Like, did you not get that, dumbass? Like,
Well, she's so arrogant that she thinks he
True.
wouldn't go against her.
True.
Right? Because even towards the end of the book, when he does try to kill her, she's like, what the fuck, dude?
Yeah.
And I'm like, really? You didn't think
see that
raping
coming?
someone for 50 years would
Right.
make them want to kill you?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
what's wrong with you?
well, but remember, he made her think that he was into it.
That's true.
So
That's
she
true.
wasn't necessarily thinking of it as rape the way that he was, because he was
Right.
making her think that, I mean, not that it makes it better or okay, but she wouldn't have necessarily thought about it that same way.
Right.
So after that,
really quick, I had
No.
2 observations on that.
Every episode, Mindy's always
I'm
like,
always
really
like, wait a
quick, and
second,
you're
let me
like,
go back.
no, bitch. We've moved on.
So 2 observations I had. First of all, did you notice that every time Rhysand is getting ready to mind melt somebody, he puts his hands in his pockets?
I think it's because he doesn't want people to know how powerful he is.
Oh,
still.
see, I thought, was it a nervous tick? Does he get extra power from his balls? I don't know.
I feel like I would get power from his balls.
I'm so confused.
I
She
think
makes a point to say that pretty much every
I
time.
think it goes to his persona, whether it's
Of
because,
casual, I don't give a fuck.
The casualness, the lack of effort to hide. Sometimes I wonder if it's to hide how powerful he is or to show how powerful he is. Like,
Right.
I don't even have to have my hands out of my
yes,
pocket.
like I don't
Yeah.
even have to
Okay.
try.
That makes sense.
But I do think it's definitely the image of the hand. It's the
I don't know.
lint, the invisible lint thing too, right? That he does all the time. Like picks an
Yeah.
invisible piece of lint off of his.
forgot
It's
about
him
that,
being
whatever.
nonchalant about
Yeah.
it. He's like, okay, I can fuck
It's
this
his way
guy's
of
up. Like I'm just-
pretending.
yeah.
He's
Okay.
too cool for all.
I don't know.
of
I
it,
like
you
the
know?
idea that he gets extra power from his balls.
That's canon.
Yeah, it is.
That is canon now.
I mean, I will say, I think my marriage has gotten extra power from his balls before.
And the only other thing I wanted to point out, did y'all notice that Claire is still nailed
I
to
did.
the wall?
Yes.
Months
Right,
later.
I wrote down, it's been months. She's still
I
on the wall. And you
know.
know that it's just torture for Feyre. That's the
How-
only reason
Oh, yeah.
she's there.
Well, it's also
And Tamlin.
torture. I don't know if it's on purpose, but it's torture for Tamlin, or
And for Rhys.
it should be for Tamlin and for Rhysand, because they're all
Right.
And we talked about that at the time when we read that section, right? Like all 3 of them are responsible, inadvertently or unknowingly, but Tamlin knowingly responsible.
Well, and
right?
there's a lot that goes into spirituality too about her body not being laid to rest.
Yeah.
which
Like,
is really scary.
it's a disrespectful thing at a bare minimum.
Well,
right?
and there's a lot of religions that feel if you're not buried in a consecrated grave, you can't go to the other side,
Right.
right?
You're, like,
so
stuck in a purgatory
it's a
kind of
further torture for that person too to not be laid to rest.
Yeah. I wish that we did know a little bit more about some of like the belief systems in this world of ACOTAR and what the Fae believe, because we know the cauldron, we know the mother, but that's pretty much it.
But
right?
we
Like,
don't really.
Yeah.
That's
well,
the thing.
we just
like,
know that they exist,
Right,
right?
yeah.
And that they are powerful, and people believe that they have power,
Mm-hmm.
and that's really it. But stuff like that, right? With Amarantha and Claire, like, what's the purpose? What do they?
well, they
what
have
does
to
she
know
think
what the
she's
human
doing?
beliefs are, right? And I mean, I would assume because that the human beliefs would align with the human beliefs in the world that Sarah J. Maas lives in,
Yeah.
right? I mean, even
Maybe.
the things that Feyre does to respect the dead of like the wolf and stuff, she feels bad for skinning it and for doing
Yeah.
the things that she does would tell me that it kind of is in line with what the general population
Yeah.
believes in America. I want to point that out because I realize we have a lot of listeners that don't live in America, and we have a large Catholic population here, and it would be not putting
Yeah.
them to rest would torture their soul,
Yeah.
literally.
And that's kind of the idea, because I was just thinking, we get a lot more information in both Throne of Glass and Crescent City as far as like those beliefs of the characters and
Right.
the world that they live in. We get a lot more in both of those series.
There's
than
a
we do
lot
in
more
this
about
one.
purgatory in Crescent City, about
Yes.
not being able to get to the other
Yeah.
side
Yeah.
and everything, which she does a really good job of making that just terrifying.
I know.
Of being stuck.
Yeah.
Right? Because that is like the scariest thing you can think of with dying, is being stuck somewhere.
Right.
Right.
It makes me think of all kinds of supernatural
It
episodes
does.
too.
Me too.
So then we get into her second task, which I want to get into the second task in a minute, but basically the overall task is there's a riddle that Feyre has to solve, and she has 3 levers as her choices for 3 answers, and she just has to pick the right one. If she doesn't, she and Lucian both are going to get killed in like super hot spikes coming down
yes.
from the ceiling, basically. And, you know, Feyre can't read. So that is super
Do
scary.
you think Amarantha knew she couldn't read?
I don't know.
I feel like she
really-
had to, because it was such
yeah.
an easy answer.
I know.
I felt like Rhys-Ann was like, dude, it's number 3. And I felt like she had to have figured it out somehow.
I
But it
know.
was
I
in
think
the
so
way it was
too.
described, it was almost like she didn't, like it was almost like it was a surprise when she realized. I don't know.
But like
I don't know either.
but we know she's using her strengths and
Weaknesses.
weaknesses against
Yeah,
her,
that's
right? Because
true.
she's like, you're a huntress, so here's trial 1.
That
And,
feels like the kind of thing that perhaps Rhys-Ann would have told her. Or
but I don't think
know.
Rhys-Ann realized she couldn't read until
I
that
don't
moment.
either.
I think he did, because maybe that
He
was
says something that made me think. Well, no, you know what? He walks into the chamber later in the book and goes,
Yes.
"You can't read," and he actually
yeah, you're
says. So when you come to my court, one of the ways I could torture you would be to make you to read,
which
you know,
he does.
right?
Which he does, yeah.
right. And so maybe he was surprised by that. Maybe they didn't know, but I don't know why she would give her such a simple task if she knew she.
That's
couldn't-
how I felt
she
too. But
thought
I
she
feel
could
like
read.
it was described that she didn't. Like she didn't realize that. So I don't know. It was interesting.
It could have been too, because Feyre can't figure out the riddle.
True.
Right? Like the riddle.
Maybe she just thinks she's dumb.
Right. That's kind of what I'm getting at, right? Like she knows that Feyre is not figuring out this one riddle. So like maybe she's just a dumb human and can't figure out anything. So I'll give her a different riddle and see if she can do that, right? And maybe that's why Amarantha is so surprised at the end when she actually gets the question right, because it's like, well, if you can get this right, why can't you answer the other one? Because
Right.
that's the same level of difficulty, right? But we also don't know what the actual task 2
Or the
riddle,
riddle
is.
was, yeah.
So this
Something
is
about
the
grasshoppers.
This is the first time we see Rhys-Ann communicate with her telepathically,
Yeah.
which is, I mean, if you are reading this for the first time, you're like, oh, holy shit, what's
Yeah.
happening? She can feel his emotions. He can talk to her telepathically. Like, what is happening here?
And not just talk to her, but make her feel pain.
Yeah.
Like
Right.
where
Shocks
there
her.
shouldn't
Right.
be pain.
Like,
right?
oh no,
Like,
don't press it, because she keeps
Yes.
trying to press it, and he's like, fucking stop.
That's how. That's how he communicates the right answer, right? Because
Right.
the one lever that doesn't feel super hot is the one that's the right answer. So yeah, it's not even just talking; it's making her feel something that isn't actually there, which I
Right.
think is almost like scarier.
Oh, yeah.
Than talking. You know
Right,
what I mean?
Right.
Like, it's just
like
super creepy.
And we know that he has that power, but I feel like what he can do with her is completely different than what his powers are. And I think even
That's
in the
true.
moment, he
Yeah.
doesn't realize, like, oh, I'm doing all this stuff that I can't
yeah,
normally
that's
do.
true.
Like, wait.
Yeah.
Because they do have that extra bond that neither one of them really fully realize,
Yeah.
like that it's there and what it means and all that. I
It's
wanted,
so exciting.
I know, right? I wanted to go back and talk about Psyche and Cupid, because way back when, it feels like 100 years ago.
I think it's only been 2 or 3 episodes, Whit.
Well, no, I mean, from the very first episode, we talked about Cupid and Psyche.
That's
which
right.
That feels like 100 years ago. But I wanted to do not really a comparison, but just kind of an explanation of Psyche's impossible tasks. Because in the myth of Cupid and Psyche, one of the major parts of the story is that Aphrodite, aka Venus, gives Psyche several impossible tasks and basically says, like, I won't punish you if you can fulfill these jobs. And so, kind of to recap, Psyche was one of 3 sisters. Psyche was beautiful. Aphrodite was jealous of her basically and was trying to punish her by making her marry somebody like super scary and gross looking. But Aphrodite's son, Cupid, fell in love with Psyche and married her secretly, but Psyche did not know that Cupid was her husband. And it's a whole big thing.
Wait, she didn't know her.
That
No,
is such
no.
a guy thing to do.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
He did it in secret because he knew that his mom would be mad. And so there was this whole
You
thing
think
of
maybe
like,
your wife might be mad?
well, he didn't care about that.
Oh, right. Why would he? Don't piss off your mom, but if you piss
Right.
off your wife, it's cool.
How do you
Well,
marry
it's-
somebody without their knowing?
I don't remember all the
Because
details.
men can do whatever they want.
Well, but it was like, I'll only come to you in the cover of darkness and you're not allowed to look at my face. And she
so
did
weird.
look at his face. Like, it was a whole thing. So, Psyche goes to Aphrodite and basically is like, hey, I'm sorry I broke your rules. I'm here to basically become your servant. And so I got this information, by the way, from worldhistory.org. So you know that it is a valid source because it's a .org. That may or may not be true. I don't know.
It's not.
Yeah, when Psyche shows up to Aphrodite to pledge her service to Aphrodite, aka Venus, she was whipped, beaten, and mocked. Which
That sounds
is
familiar.
Exactly what happened with Feyre when she shows up under the mountain. The first job that Psyche was given, she had to sort grains of wheat, barley, millet, poppy seed, lentils, and beans in a short amount of time. She was given this like huge pile of all these different beans and was like, before dinner, basically, you have to do
I
this.
just want to remind the listeners too, if you didn't listen to last week's or 2 weeks ago episode, she has to sort lentils
Yeah.
out of the chimney soot in Rhysand's room.
Right, exactly. Which when you read, at least for me, when I read that, I'm like, what is the random like lentils? But it's obviously
Right.
Tied
you
to
know,
the
an
Psyche
ode.
thing.
Yeah, like an ode to this myth. The only reason that Psyche is able to complete that task of sorting all these different grains is because ants feel sorry for her, like her, and the ants do it for her, basically, which goes back to Rhysand doing her job for her with the
Yeah.
lentils, and also the Lady of Autumn Court helping her with the cleaning
Yeah.
the floor. So then the second task that Psyche is given, she had to cross a river and get gold shining fleeces from the backs of violent rams. And basically, Psyche in the myth is like, there's no way I can do that and survive because these rams are going to like attack me and kill me. So her plan is she's just going to jump in the river and drown herself. And instead, the river itself helps her and tells her, you know, like, we'll do this or go at this time and the rams will be peaceful and you'll be able to just like shear some of their fleece off and they won't bother you. And so the river helps her again, just like Rhysand does, just like the Lady of Autumn Court does. So she's
I think
able
I would
to.
Well, just
question my sanity if the river started
I know,
talking
right?
to me.
Well,
Well,
just
the
like-
ants already were talking to her.
But in the first trial too, Lucian helps her with the worm, right?
Right,
So
exactly.
she's getting like this outside help always.
Exactly. And her third task, Psyche, was to collect the black water from the river Styx. And the god Jupiter actually helped her. I wasn't clear if he did it for her or if he just like told her how to do it. But Jupiter helped her and she was able to do that task as well. And then her final task, she was supposed to get a dose of the beauty of Proserpine, the queen of the underworld. It wasn't Persephone. I don't know if it's like a Greek
it's
versus
Proserpine.
Roman. I don't know. Proserpine.
Proserpine.
Our word nerd.
Sorry.
We'll go with that. She was supposed to get a dose of the beauty of the queen of the underworld and put it in a golden box. And a tall tower on her way down to the underworld helped her and like told her how to basically get the queen of the underworld on her side. And
The
just, like,
writer
ask
of the
for it.
story was really reaching.
I know,
I
right?
think the writer of the story was on acid.
Well, yeah, sure.
Absence.
So-
probably ingested some chemical they didn't know was poisonous.
In the story of Psyche, Psyche is able to complete that final task. She gets the dose of beauty and leaves the underworld. But when she gets Earthside, her curiosity gets the better of her. And she opens that box to see the beauty from the queen of the underworld, and she finds instead a dark cloud that put her into a deep sleep. And Cupid, her husband, finds her, takes her to the god Jupiter, who had already helped her with task number 3, and asks that Jupiter make Psyche a goddess. So she drinks ambrosia, and she becomes the goddess of the soul, which again is very similar to what's going to happen to Feyre, right? Like she defeats all the tasks, but still like basically ends up dying and has to become immortal. Somebody, a god, has to save her and make her immortal so that she doesn't die. And I just thought this paragraph was really interesting. The story of Psyche is one of a mortal woman who, abandoned by her lover due to her own curiosity, completes many seemingly impossible trials to win him back, becoming a goddess along the way. Just as a butterfly or a human soul endures pain and change, so too does Psyche, as many artists and writers have alluded to throughout the centuries. And I just thought that was really interesting because Feyre, like Psyche, is a mortal woman who is abandoned by her lover because of her own curiosity, right? Like Feyre goes to under the mountain and everybody's like, why are you here, you stupid bitch? She does do these trials. She does complete these impossible tasks to win her lover back, but becomes a goddess along the way. And I just thought that was so interesting because I knew that this was based off of that myth, but I had never really looked into it that deeply to see all the different parallels.
So many parallels.
Yeah, lots of...
it's interesting because these books never get compared to Greek mythology like a lot of books do right now. They just get compared to Beauty and the Beast.
Yeah. Right. Which we learned in episode 1. Beauty and the Beast is based off of Cupid and Psyche, right? But I just thought that was so interesting.
Yeah,
Sarah
that's cool.
J. clearly did a lot of research. Good job.
So one thing I want to point out during this trial, and I don't know if you all noticed this, so I can't remember if it was 1 or 2 episodes ago, but the first time that Rhysand calls Feyre darling happens.
I wrote that down.
So did you all notice that Amarantha calls her that?
Yes.
It says, "Here, Feyre darling, you shall find your task. Simply answer the question by selecting the correct lever and you'll win."
I wrote that down too, and I wrote down, is Amarantha calling her Feyre darling because of Rhys, or is Rhys calling her Feyre darling because of Amarantha?
But Rhys had already called her that.
Well, but I wonder if Amarantha had been calling her that like to Tamlin when Feyre's not around or something.
Your little Feyre darling.
Yes, like it was like one of those, which came first, right?
I feel like maybe in my head canon that she's doing it to piss him off because like that he'd already called her that.
Maybe that to Amarantha, well, your little Feyre darling,
or
like he accidentally said it.
But she's saying it because he came, and this is after he's already presented her and talked about the bargain and been like hanging out with her, and maybe Amarantha's jealous and it's sort of like a mocking thing.
Yeah, we definitely are gonna, well, actually we don't see this in this book. We find out in book 2 that Amarantha was jealous of Feyre in the next section, I think, when she catches Rhysand making out with Feyre when he's like trying to cover the fact that Tamlin was making out with Feyre.
Right.
Amarantha definitely is jealous of her, at least in that moment. So I think it's probably fair to assume that that wasn't the only time, right, that she was jealous.
So can we talk about after the trial whenever Rhysand licks Feyre's tears?
God,
I really want to talk about
so
this.
Gross. Actually, also let's say
I didn't mind it, guys.
I want to call out Lucian for being an absolute dick during the task. Like yelling at her is not going to help. It's going to make her more anxious. Like that pissed me off. I was like, dude, you're not helping. Like I get that he's scared. I get that, but like. Well, just shut up and let her do it.
I mean, to be fair to Lucian, though, like Lucian knows that she can't read.
That's true.
So in his mind, like he is effed. You know what I mean? Like there's no, unless she just guesses right, there's no
But
way
also, if there was a hot spike coming towards my head and it was one of you two and I have full faith in you, I would be like, fucking hurry up. What is wrong with you? I would be, I mean, you guys have seen me
You're
scream.
right, Mindy. Like it's not helpful at all.
You guys have seen me scream at my husband in an escape room and my life wasn't depending on that.
Well, and I
just wanted to win.
That just also solidifies how little he knows about humans and their mental health, because
like how they work. Yeah. No, I totally agree with that. I did write in all capital letters in my notes, if Tamlin had taught her to read instead of writing limericks, the trauma
Sexy limericks.
Yeah, I said the trauma would be less right now. Is what I wrote down. Like, I mean,
True.
It made me so mad reading this. And again, we don't really know if Amarantha knew that she couldn't read or if it was just a like, I think she's stupid, and so I'm just gonna go with that idea kind of thing. But Tamlin knew she couldn't read, and Lucien knew she couldn't read, and they didn't freaking help her.
Yeah.
And look now. It comes back to bite you in the butt, right?
Yeah,
like,
that backfired.
yes, like, it just makes me so mad. Teach her how to read. And what's one of the first things that Rhysand says to her
I'm gonna
after
teach you
this,
how to
right?
read.
Yeah, like, I guess I'm going to teach you how to read, right? Like,
Right. Yeah.
All right, back to the licking though, because
Oh, yeah.
Whitney seems on
Ooh,
board.
Okay,
back
so
to the licking.
I'm going to be honest. I also was not completely against it. But I
you
do.
didn't like when Tamlin licked her or kissed her eyelids, but this
That's
isn't
different.
gross. Like, ew.
licking is different.
It is. Thank you.
Yeah, it's grosser. Like, that's like spit. And
So
like,
if Rhysand wanted to lick you, you wouldn't let him.
no, unless he wants to lick my vag. Take that a little bit lower, dude.
She's like, you're licking in the wrong spot. Stop it.
You missed.
Dear God. Well, like, and what I don't understand about this is like why he did that.
I think he was trying to piss her off. Like he was. No.
Oh, hold on. Whitney knows.
I have answers to this. Okay, so first of all, I want to point out that Feyre was turned on by that.
She was.
She was.
She says
yeah.
like everything went taut and loose.
And
all
then
at the
she
same
says
time.
it was disgusting, and he goes, "Was it?"
I know that made me laugh.
And I'm like, "It wasn't. It wasn't disgusting."
because he could feel that she was turned on.
Right, like
Yeah.
he would know that she was
Yeah.
aroused. So first of all, in A Court of Mist and Fury, there's a scene where Feyre and Rhysand are flirting with each other, writing those notes back and forth to each other, and he says something about like. She said one of them says something about licking their wounds, and he was like, "I'm very good at licking," and she's like, "I seem to remember that you were not." And he says, "I was under duress," which I thought was really funny. Like they joke about this
Yeah.
moment later, but in A Court of Mist and Fury, he tells her basically like, "I was trying to keep you from fully breaking." Like he is, I think, trying to make her mad.
He's
but
trying to make her feel something.
He's trying to pull
So
her
she
back
doesn't shatter.
from yes.
So
he's
it even
pulling her
says
from the ledge.
The very
basically.
last sentence in this chapter says, "It took me a long while to realize that Rhysand, whether he knew it or not, had effectively kept me from shattering completely."
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, he was kind of manipulation's the wrong word. He was distracting her.
Yeah.
Yes. Distracting her from what was happening. And he's like, "Well, I mean, those look nice. I guess I'll just lick her face a little bit."
I think also though, I mean, he's distracting her. He's trying to make her feel something, pull her back from the ledge. But also, honestly, I think that he just like couldn't help it. I think that he is just drawn to her. And I think that he sees, when you see the person that you love more than anybody, and at this point he doesn't really feel that way about her, but like kind of. But when you see them so upset, all you want to do is just like be there for them.
Okay,
right?
but grab her boob. Don't lick her face.
She would have punched him if he had grabbed her
But
boob.
like anything overtly sexual would have been like an absolute no-go for him because of his experiences with Amarantha. And so
I'm
he's
still not on board
He's
with the
doing
licking.
something like super weird and
I feel
out
bad for
there.
Darren that he's not allowed to lick you anywhere except for your vag. Licking's nice.
Oh man. That threw me off, Dad.
Oh, Mindy. Let Darren lick your boobs at least. Come on.
He could lick my boobs. That's fine.
Okay. You were very forthcoming with vag.
Just don't lick my face.
I will say that I did look up in A Court of Mist and Fury. Rhysand doesn't have a ton to say about this section of Under the Mountain. The only things that he says is that he says we endured it. Because he had just finished saying, I decided that I was going to fight dirty. I was going to help you beat Amarantha, right? So we endured it. I made you dress like that so Amarantha wouldn't suspect, and made you drink the wine so you would not remember the nightly horrors in that mountain. And that's all he says about this time period.
Well, he's got trauma too. He probably doesn't want to talk about it.
Yeah. He has a lot more to say about the next section, about the third trial and everything that happens after that. But no, I think, with the licking, I honestly think he just like couldn't help it. I think he was trying to figure out like in the moment, what can I do to help her come back from the brink? Yeah. But also I just need to like be close to her.
I mean, I can see that because before that she had, right after she came back from the second trial, she had actually essentially had a panic attack, and which I have to say again, and I say that I feel like I say this every week, that Sarah J. Maas is such a brilliant writer, because when I was reading, when she described how when she was back in her cell, the walls were closing in on her and air was being sucked out of her. She couldn't keep herself in her body because the walls were forcing her out of the body. Like, she literally just described what it felt when I have a panic attack. So I suffer from panic attacks. And so when I saw that written, that resonated with me. Like, it was so genuine. And so she had just come from that, where she's really essentially giving up. She's having a panic attack. She's like,
she said she's never going to see the sun again and never going to paint again.
Yeah.
She thinks she's fucked.
Yeah. And so, I mean, I guess I see that he had to do something totally fucking weird to get her out of that. But it was totally fucking weird.
Well, and like he said, I was under duress. That just makes me laugh, where he's like, well, hold on now. But no, I agree with you. And that feeling, that panic attack description this is not the first time, or not the last time, that we see this with Feyre, right?
Right.
Like, this happens multiple times throughout the second book, when she's in the night court, when she goes with Rhysand to the prison. She can't even go in because it's under a mountain.
And also when she's about to get married. She starts having
about to get married, when she goes to the Weaver of the Woods house with Rhysand, and he leaves her in there and lets her like deal with that. That was one of the things I wrote down about the second task, like that feeling of panic of like, I have this thing I'm supposed to do and I don't know how to do it. Like, it's the same kind of description that's in that Weaver of the Woods cabin, where she's trying to get that ring, right? Like, this is not the last time that Feyre has to figure out, how do I get through this panic? How do I deal with this panic and then like move past it, because I still have to do this.
Well, it's not like she has a therapist. She doesn't have an antidepressant or an anti-anxiety med.
She has Lucian. Bless his heart.
Oh. She has that bitch Ianthe who is manipulating everything around her.
She's got Tamlin, who like won't talk to her about anything, which still, like, I keep remembering that as I'm reading these last chapters of this first book.
Well, and I think as someone who suffers from panic attacks too, when you're in that, there's nothing that you can do to get yourself out of that, honestly. Like, you need somebody to come in and do something weird, or like stop that cycle or whatever.
So next time you're really upset, I should lick you? Will we still be friends if I lick your face?
Don't you dare fucking lick my face. We've already ascertained that there will be no licking of my face from anybody, because that's just weird and gross. I don't get it.
Can I put my finger up your nose? That's what I do to my kids.
I am so glad that you said nose.
Yeah.
Well, we already know that Mindy likes to have her vag licked. So
not by you.
Not by me.
I was going to say, who doesn't?
But like, when my kids are being like ridiculous, I will literally walk up to them and put my finger in their nose. I
wouldn't put your finger in my nose. Maybe my ear.
I can put my finger in your ear.
Yeah, you can give me a wet willy.
That's not going to piss you off at all.
This is a really weird conversation. I'm just going to say that.
So
weirder than licking tears off of someone's face.
If your friend's having a panic attack, you heard it here. Mindy said it's okay to give them a wet willy. It's not going to make it worse. I would rather have someone lick my face than put spit in my ear. What is wrong with you?
What's the difference?
It's on your face, not in a canal.
I was going to say, if it's in the ear, it feels like it's going to get stuck there.
Yeah.
Like if it's just on my face.
Or drain down into my, like...
Ew.
Okay, but he licked near her eyes. She's going to get conjunctivitis.
Not from Rhysand.
No, not with those sparkling violet eyes.
I don't know.
I'm
still not on board.
I would... Only for Rhysand, though. I would be like, yes, that's fine. Do it again. Let me cry some more. Hold on. Let me squeeze a tear out real quick.
That's not what you want to squeeze out.
Did you guys have anything else you wanted to talk about?
Yes, I do now that I'm all turned on by
With
Rhysand
these
licking
two
her.
chapters. So who wants to go first for their nerdiest thing of the week?
I'll go first. So first, I actually have a few things. First of all, I noticed, and this is something I think that's been out for a while, but there's a video of Sarah J. Maas basically calling out Tamlin as a douchebag. I love it. Like, there's this video floating around, and I'll have to find it and we'll have to post it. But she basically says that, like, he's a jerk. Like, she calls him out on it.
Interesting.
Yeah,
I thought
that. See, I thought everybody had seen that, but I got so tickled over that. So I'll have to find that and we'll post that up
canon.
there.
Tamlin sucks.
Well, because I mean, she said it was. Right. And then the other thing is I got so excited because I ordered this reading caddy for my couch, which is where I normally read. And so basically it's this thing that like sticks in between your cushions, and it's
Sorry.
and it's got pockets, and you put all like, so I can put my Kindle in there. I can put the book I'm reading. I can put my my wireless earbuds or my whatever I'm using.
Dildo.
My dildo, because I need that when I'm reading the Pucked series.
Oh my!
Just like it's got these pockets, and it's actually a place for like a water bottle and everything. So I'm super stoked about it. It comes in tomorrow, and I'm very
I feel
excited.
like it's got to be like the size of a messenger bag. Like,
I mean, I don't know. That's the thing. I don't know how big it's going to actually
see what
be.
it looks like.
Yeah,
I'm excited.
I think it's just like 8.5 by 11.
Okay.
But it's got like one big pocket and then like 3 pockets in the front, and it's got little.
Does it go over the arm of your chair?
No, it goes like in between the cushion and.
Sorry, every time you say
I'm making a hand gesture. I think that's making it worse. It goes in between the cushion and like the bottom part of the couch, so it's on the side.
this.
Yeah.
I'm being really gross off mic. Sorry.
Well, maybe I'll have to take a picture and we'll post that too. But the last thing, which I think is the absolute nerdiest thing ever, is so my son came home and he's super stressed about this English assignment he's got. They get this thing and he's talking about how it's all these words and they have to break them down into their roots and their Latin roots and their Greek roots and all this stuff. And I was like, oh, are you doing word clues? And he's like, that's exactly what we're doing. And I'm like, I loved that when I was in school. It was this like workbook, and basically it has all these words and all the different, like, because I'm the word nerd, so all the different roots and what they mean, and then you have to like have the definition of the word and see where the roots came from. I don't know why I loved that thing. I love a good workbook. I don't know. And he is stressing about it. I'm like, I'll help you with that. Like, he's like, okay, whatever. So I'm like, let's do flashcards. I'm such a dork.
Did you make flashcards?
Yes, I made flashcards.
I love it.
He's like, those flashcards are for you.
No, but I will tell you, he got a 100% and the extra bonus on his quiz. So
Well,
he's
good job,
really
Dawson.
appreciating my nerdiness with the word clues. But I actually did it. He's a junior in high school. I did it when I was in 7th grade.
I'm not sure I ever did that. I don't know what that
I
is.
don't think I did
Yeah.
either.
It was amazing.
I think you're right. That is the nerdiest thing.
It definitely is.
Definitely the nerdest thing of the week out of all of us. For sure.
I haven't gone yet.
Go, Wit. I want to hear it.
Well, I'm kind of speeding through the Red Queen series. So that's just a nerdy thing because I'm reading it fast, although I'm kind of struggling through the last book, which is upsetting. I did stay up really late the other night to read like a romance book by Elle Mitchell, her first book. I read her second book first because you don't have to read them in order. I really liked the first book. I just sat and read it in like 2 hours. So that was kind of nerdy. But the nerdiest thing is also like just really, really embarrassing. It kind of goes along with our like mental health discussion tonight. We had a call like as a podcast crew that I was kind of nervous about. And so on my drive over here, I was doing one of my like coping things that I do only when I'm by myself. And while I was doing it, I was like, this is really weird that I do this. So what I do, and I feel comfortable to share this because I just imagine like nobody but you two is ever going to listen to this.
We have a lot of listeners.
I know.
I just want to be honest with you.
So when I am like really anxious about a conversation, whether it's like a confrontation or whatever, like a job interview, whatever it is, I like pretend that I'm having the conversation before it happens, but I like do it with an accent.
Okay, here's what I need to know. Does the accent change every time, or is it the same?
It just depends on what kind of mood I'm in. And so
Like, are you Jamaican sometimes?
No.
That's what I need to know.
No, I'm usually British, but this time I told you it's really embarrassing.
So is the interviewer British or like you're British?
I'm British. The interviewer is in my head. So
here's the thing I'll say though, like all laughing at you aside, having a coping mechanism is very, very important.
Yes.
And
Well,
I
yeah.
think that's super awesome, but it is really funny.
no, it's really weird, and that's fine. But I was doing it, and then I was like, this is really weird, and so I switched what I was doing, and instead of like pretending like our conversation was happening, I just pretended like I was in an interview with my therapist, and was like, well, this is what I do when I'm anxious, in like a British accent. And then I was like,
you know what that sounds like?
no. And
Oh, really?
so then I was like, this isn't really sounding like the way I want my British accent to sound. So I was like, you know what? I'm saying this like out loud in my car on the drive over here.
I talk to myself all the time.
I'm like, this British accent isn't working for me. I'm just going to switch into Australian, you guys. And so I was just like,
I don't know that my British and my Australian accent would be any different.
The only difference between my British and Australian is the word crikey.
And good day, mate.
I mean,
and we have a lot of British listeners, so I'm so sorry.
It was
so
really
sorry.
intense, and I was like, "This is one of the weirdest things I've ever done." Because like I'm doing it, but the coping mechanism in that particular instance was me like explaining the coping mechanism like to myself alone in my car. It was really weird, and it made me feel nerdy. And we'll just pretend
I'm
like
just going to say
no
it's
one
not
knows.
weird. I think it's,
Well, it's a
whatever
little weird.
whatever you need to do to get to where you need to be. And trust me, I do weird things too. I listen to subliminal messages that tell me to be a confident speaker and to
You
be.
are a confident speaker.
But I'm not really. So
You are a confident speaker.
Who does not need to smoke. We were talking about the Friends episode earlier, y'all. That's
It
why
was
we're
just really one of those things where it's like I have done that for a really long time, like when I'm by myself. But when I did it the other day, I actually like thought about what I was doing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And was like, oh, this is weird. this is a weird thing that I'm doing.
I do want to
there
say
you go.
the call that Whitney was nervous about. We'll have a really, really cool announcement soon, so I can't wait for that. It was something. And here's the thing, being anxious over something, it doesn't matter what it is. You can be anxious over anything, but I think we were all really nervous about
Yes.
it.
Yeah.
And it ended up being really quite fabulous.
It was.
I'm really, really thrilled.
You know what? It was fabulous because I talked in my Australian accent in my car.
Yeah, no, what you guys don't know is while we were talking to this person, she was also in an Australian accent.
Anyway, my turn's over.
Okay, so first I'm going to talk about our nerdiest cocktail. So this week, we know that Feyre couldn't read and couldn't finish the trial because of that without help. And we have this really, really bougie, pretentious book of like the favorite drinks of all of our alcoholic literary people. I wanted to find a cocktail out of that book. And so Zelda Fitzgerald really loved vodka lemonade. So that's what we had tonight. And part of our nerdiest thing is one of the road trips that unfortunately Whitney didn't get to go on. We did this like really funny ghost tour. Do you remember this?
that was hilarious.
And it was this like, but the ghosts were all this same dude that would jump off the bus and like
dressed
dress
up
up
like
in costumes.
weirdos.
And so he came on the bus with this big like blonde wig and like black like
and like a flapper dress.
right, yeah. And he's like, I'm Zelda Fitzgerald. So when I saw it, I was like, we have to do that one.
And I've had probably too much, and we'll have to eat some.
We'll make
pretzels
some
before
French
I go
fries.
home.
It'll be fine. So then the other thing is I have two others. So in the JLA shop this week, Jennifer Armentrout posted these really cool little acrylic standees. And there's one of Poppy and Cass, and there's one of Sarah and Niktos. And I ordered them because obviously.
Yeah, they're really cool.
Yeah, they're really, really cool. And I got them yesterday, and they are like so freaking beautiful. I love them so much. And then the other thing is I did go ahead and get A Court of Mist and Fury on audiobook because I'm really struggling not continuing the series. We only have 2 more episodes in this season. At the beginning of this episode, you heard what our season 2 is going to be. We're really, really, really excited, but I have trouble stopping the series in the middle, right? So,
me too.
yeah, so I am going to go ahead and listen to A Court of Mist and Fury because I gotta.
It's so good.
It is.
It is
That's
really
my
good.
favorite of the three.
I will say,
Or four,
you know,
five,
the point of
whatever.
this podcast is to get people into a series they haven't read yet. So even though we're not going to do the next book, we really, really do want you to continue on. But we could do Sarah J. Maas books for 5 years.
Oh, we definitely
right?
could.
Because she has
At least 5
right.
years.
And so, you know, we want to support other authors and read different points of view. And so if you have the opportunity to go ahead and go to the library and get those books, you should.
All right, well, that's it for this week. Next week, we are talking about chapters 41, 42, and 43.
Bye.
Bye.
For exclusive content and to keep up with all things nerdy, follow us on Instagram at Our Nerdiest Thing. We post book reviews, what to read next, and our cocktail recipes. Have something nerdy that you'd like to share? Email us at ournerdiestthing@gmail.com. This podcast is edited and produced by The Story Guides. Thanks for listening.